ahead and call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. There's 30 of us, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that go up a little bit more. But you have found your way to the December meeting of the University of Lowbrow Astronomers. As I think everybody here knows, I am Charlie, the president of the club, seemingly forever. Someday I'm not going to be. But anyway, we have a few other officers that we'll probably get reports from later on. Also, as a reminder, we are not live recording on YouTube, but we are recording, and then that recording is going to be uploaded to YouTube later. So just so that you're aware of that. And with that, as traditional, we're going to have our speakers talk to us first. And our speaker tonight is one of our own members, Don Fohey, who's been with the Lowbrows. How many years has it been, Don? It's been a while. You're muted, Don. Don, you're muted.
Well, yeah, I think about the time I retired, so that would have been about 2005, maybe a couple of years before that. Yeah,
it's been a while. So, and as you all know, Don has been very, very involved with the club, not just for a long time, but in many ways. He participates in a good percentage, if not most, of our public type events. He's done presentations on our behalf. He was very recently our newsletter editor and had done that for a number of years. So he's a very, very key and valued member, and downright nice guy, actually, as it turns out. And if you want, he can even whip you up some electronics to put encoders on your telescope for you. So, but I'm just wondering, Don, is there anything interesting about you that perhaps Lowbrows don't know?
No, I think you've covered it very well, Charlie. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. I always try to wrench something out of you, but you're not going to tell us. So. So thanks a lot, Don. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, before I go to my slideshow, I want to preface it with a little model, if I can. I'm going to be talking a lot about the New Horizon mission. And there's some key concepts I think you need to understand so I don't have to explain them when we get into that part of the presentation. So the body of the spacecraft has got the instruments on it. Like this window here opens up to the long range telescope. That's an 8-inch f12 Ritchie Chrétien telescope that's going to be needed to be pointed somewhere. These are thrusters that allow the spacecraft to change its trajectory. There's other little thrusters that allow it to orientate itself. This here is another set of cameras with 8 different detectors in it. Here's a spectrometer to look at atmosphere and measure ultraviolet spectrums. And there's other experiments on the spacecraft. When the spacecraft is flying, it normally has the antenna pointed towards Earth. But when we get to the encounter with Pluto and its moons, these various instruments are going to have to be pointed to different places. So there's no gyro stabilization at all in the spacecraft. And in order to point an instrument to an object, the telescope has got to change its orientation to point whatever instrument it is at what moon or planet or that we want to take a picture of or make instrument readings of. So while we're doing the flyby, of course, we're not communicating with Earth. All the instruments are taking their measurements, and later they'll be downloaded to Earth. So this has got to go through a complicated choreography during close encounter, and that's called the core sequence of measurements to be made. So that core sequence has got to be made autonomously and executed with from beginning to end. And that core sequence is going to be an important part of the mission to make all the measurements that are going to be made. So I wanted to start off by explaining that and visually showing you how that works. So now I'm going to screen share and I'm going to go to my slideshow. Okay, I think everyone should see my first slide here. So Pluto's discovered 84 years after Neptune. And the story really starts with the Lowell Observatory. Of course, Percival Lowell established that observatory primarily to study Mars. And he's famous for all his sketches that he made showing the canals on Mars, believing there was Martians generating these canals and that sort of thing. But after he spent many years doing that, he got really interested in looking for what he called Planet X. And he, with a lot of others at the time, thought a Planet X out beyond Neptune might be found by looking at irregularities in Neptune's orbit, very similarly to the way Neptune itself was found with irregularities in Uranus's orbit. Turns out there was no irregularities. Those perceptions were either measurement errors or calculation errors. But in any event, he was serious about looking for this Planet X. He dies in 1916, and in his will, he leaves significant funds for the search for Planet X. His will is contested by his widow, and it's in the courts for 10 years until it's finally settled. And then his brother provides the funds and orders a Clark Astrograph to be manufactured and shipped to the Lowell Observatory so they can follow his wishes and look for Planet X. So Clyde Tombaugh is a farm boy from Kansas. Astronomy is his passion. He's drawing pictures of Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, and he sends those to the observatory and say, hey, I'm really interested in whatever I can, in working for you guys. So the observatory director is impressed, and they hire this 23-year-old young man from Kansas with no formal education beyond high school to come out and run the telescope to search for Planet X. I took these pictures at the Lowell Observatory. If you're ever in Flagstaff, you've got to check it out. On the left's the 24-inch Clark refractor. I usually use it as the background in my Zoom, but it's off now. But yeah, on a clear night, you can actually look through the same eyepiece that Percival Lowell looked through. But the day we were there, that night a storm was coming through, so we couldn't do it. And about 100 yards or so from the Lowell Observatory is the other planetarium that has the Pluto Discovery Astrograph, and that's pictured on the right. And that big wooden box you see there is the film holder that's going to be exposed as he makes his exposures every night. And then you can't really see the telescope, but there's a large finder refractor that's slung underneath it. And in the center of the picture, you can see that brass eyepiece. So he would sit looking through that eyepiece, manually tracking the telescope to keep the images tracking, because the tracking's good, but not as good as it needs to be to make these long exposures that he was making. So that's how he went about searching for Planet X. And he would take images like these two. And these are the discovery images that he took. During the new moon, either side of new moon, he would be taking images. And then when there was full moon, he would work in his lab developing the films and then using a blink comparator to look for something moving. Now, in the little museum that they have there at the observatory, they actually have these two frames with a blink comparator. And I sat there going back and forth with the blink comparator, and I never could find it. So even having a blink comparator, you need some training and experience to be able to find the motion of a tiny little object like Pluto way out there. So he announces to the world that he's discovered Pluto. There's some competition and people coming up with different names. Finally, a schoolgirl from England, I think she's an 11-year-old schoolgirl, comes up with a name Pluto after the Roman god of the underworld. And the observatory liked that because PL were the initials for Percival Lowell. So the name Pluto was adopted for this object. So at this point in time, the best telescopes we have on Earth can only resolve it as a point-like object. But even then, we know it's very distant, it's very small, but we can tell quite a lot about it. We learn that it's way out there. It's got a very elliptical orbit. The orbit's inclined to the ecliptic. But we know it's how fast it rotates. And we know that its rotational axis is almost horizontal. It's laid way over compared to like the Earth or Mars. So we know a little bit about it. We know it must be a frozen ice ball out there. If we look at the orbit, one of the significant things is in 1930, when Clyde found it, Pluto was just crossing the ecliptic. And it was just by happenstance. He was looking across along the zodiac through the ecliptic because that's where he'd expect to find a planet. But if Pluto had been near perihelion or aphelion, he never would have found it because it would have been too far from the area of the skies that he was searching. So it was just happenstance that it was crossing the ecliptic when he was doing his searches for Planet X. Interesting to note that perihelion's around 1990. So that's the closest to the sun, and we trained some telescopes on it during that period. And again, it's crossing the ecliptic about the time when the New Horizon mission was going to arrive there. So in 1978, when Pluto's near the perihelion rather, Jim Christie, working for the naval building, the Naval Astronomy building, he's trying to image Pluto to get a better location on it to refine its orbit. And he looks at his images and he sees that it's got a large moon. And I include this just to show the quality of the images that we can get of Pluto. These are the best images we can obtain of Pluto with earthbound telescopes in that period of time. But this sort of started planetary scientists to think a little bit differently about Pluto because this was a time right when the moons were actually in an orientation that we could see them occulting the planet as Charon went around the moon. But let's go on. So we know it's got a moon. With that, we're able to really get a good idea of the mass of both the moon and the planet from the orbital mechanics. It's a period of discovery. We've sent out some deep sky missions. Voyager 1, of course, did the great flyby of Uranus and Neptune. It was plausible for Voyager 1 to go out to Pluto at the time it was launched. But they decided that there was better science to be had by investigating Titan, which they had recently learned had a lot of dynamics going on with it. So it was a good decision that they diverted Voyager 1 to investigate Titan, and that sent it out of the plane of the ecliptic and off into a different direction in the universe also, which would be helpful. But we had no flybys or even missions thought of or planned for Pluto. Then at about 2000, what we knew about Pluto was that from the eclipsing of the moon, that took place over a period of 5 years, they were able to tell a lot by looking at the light coming through. They were able to tell that, yeah, there was some surface ice on Charon, that Pluto had methane ice. It had an atmosphere. There were surface irregularities with different colors on both the moon and Pluto. And we were able to point the Hubble telescope. Hubble launched in 1990, but we weren't really able to get a good image of it until there was a camera upgrade. And then these are the best photographs we could get of Pluto with the Hubble telescope. But the planetary scientists were getting interested in Pluto. It seemed like it was more than just a rocky, icy rock out there. And there became a group of Plutophytes who were really interested. Alan Stern became interested, and many proposals were written. Let's go to Pluto. Here's a mission idea. Let's try these. But most of those were never seriously considered by NASA and were discarded for a variety of reasons because, frankly, there were much better science to be, more rewarding missions to be done by going to Mars and Jupiter and Saturn. So we focused on those planets. But then the planetary science and NASA started realizing time was running out to go to Pluto. If we wanted to do a gravity assist, we needed to do it before 2006. Otherwise, we would have to wait another 12 years for Jupiter to come back around where we could use it again. Pluto had already reached perihelion and was getting farther away. And that spin axis that I talked about was orientated so that the sun was still illuminating both hemispheres. But as Pluto got closer to aphelion, only one hemisphere was going to be lit by the sun, another hemisphere was going to be permanently in darkness. So we wouldn't be able to get a good look at it. And the farther Pluto got away, the colder the atmosphere got, the more likelihood any atmosphere it had would freeze out on the surface. So with those thoughts, NASA said, okay, let's go to Pluto. They had an 18-month proposal period. 4 companies, gets really complicated. 4 companies started proposals. There were 2 finalists. It was JPL, who had done the Voyager missions and such, and the Applied Physics Lab at Johns Hopkins University in Maryland. And the winning proposal was Johns Hopkins, the New Horizon mission with Alan Stern as the principal investigator. So now that they had awarded the contract, APL had 4 years to build the spacecraft and 4 years to build the rocket to make this launch happen in January of 2006. And it's just amazing that they accomplished all they did in that relatively short period of time. And then once they launched, this thing was going to be flying for 9.5 years to get out to Pluto. And that's just sort of mind-boggling. It's going to take something that long to get out there. Just tells you how big the solar system is. Here's some images of the spacecraft that gives you a good idea of the size of this spacecraft. And of course, any mission to the outer planets needs a radioisotope thermal generator, which is the black tubes that are sticking out the back. And they're powered by plutonium, but we only had 4 years to get the plutonium that we needed to power those radioactive thermal generators. It's only can be made at Los Alamos in New Mexico. And during that period of time, the lab was shut down twice, once for security breach, if you recall, and another time with a nuclear accident, a leak of some sort. So at that time, we have a member of our club, Chris Adams, was actually working with Los Alamos. And he was actually working on the equipment that made the plutonium dioxide pellets. And he has some aluminum pellets that were actually made in those presses. So they weren't able to get all the plutonium they designed for. They were hoping to have 230 watts when they got out to Pluto. And they ended up having 200 watts. So they got just enough plutonium to fly the mission. And if they turned off instruments and only used them one at a time and were careful about and turned off the transmitter when they were collecting data and doing those sorts of things, they could actually do the flyby with 190 watts. So, that was one of the hurdles they had to get past in order to make the mission. And you know, the plutonium for the generators is plutonium-238. It's different than the fissionable plutonium that you would use in bomb making. It's radioactive, but it only really emits mostly alpha particles, which can be stopped with very, very minor shielding. Okay. So the telescope has got these 7 instruments. The most notable, which I think is the long-range Reconnaissance Telescope, which is an 8.5 f12 Ritchie-Chrétien telescope with a silicon carbide mirror. And if you think about it, you've got to orientate that spacecraft to point that telescope. The telescope is, I don't know if you can see me, it's that one there, at the object that you're looking at. And you've got to the only thing you can do is hold it in place by your thruster. So you got to position it and stop it in that position for the time exposure that you're taking with this long focal length telescope. It's just amazing the positioning accuracy they can get with that spacecraft. Then the other telescope, the Ralph, has 8 different detectors in it at different wavelengths and different resolutions that they could use to look at various things. Let's go on here. So they built a rocket. This is the biggest rocket NASA could put together, or APL could put together. I don't think NASA has built anything with this big since, although they will with the new Ares rocket and that sort of things that are coming online. But it starts off with the biggest thing NASA had, which was the Atlas V, and they strapped 5 solid-state boosters to it. Then on top of that, they put a Centauri rocket, which was an oxygen-hydrogen rocket, as a second stage. Then on top of that, they put another solid propellant rocket that was attached to the spacecraft. Huge rocket stack that they put together for this mission. And it was supposed to launch on a Monday. So Alan Stern and everyone's at the control block. They're going through all their checklists. And there's a weather system coming through the Cape. And they are worried about the high wind, so they postpone it a few hours. And the winds get even worse. And finally, the guy in charge of weather says, abort. It's too windy to launch. Come back tomorrow. So the whole team went home, came back the next day, refueled the rockets, get all ready to go. But that same storm that had gone through the Cape had gone up the coast to Maryland, where the Applied Physics Lab was and where Mission Ground Control was for the New Horizon mission. So they're going down, and they had knocked out power. 1 million people, this is January, it's a winter storm. 1 million people are without electricity. And the Applied Physics Laboratory is running on a standby generator. So they get to Alan Stern, they said, go, no go. And he thinks about it. Okay, this generator running in the back of their lab is a single point of failure. If I lose the generator, I lose communication with my spacecraft and control of it. So he says, abort. Nope, we're not going to do it. So at that point, Launch Command, people at the Cape, says, our crews have been really busy. They worked all weekend getting everything ready. They worked 2 intense days here. In order to be sure that we don't make mistakes, we need to send everybody home and let them get some rest. So Alan Stern agrees to it, and they send everybody home. So everybody comes back on Thursday, and they go through the countdown again. And everything goes right. And they say launch and push the button. And this huge rocket takes off from the Cape. Alan Stern goes outside when he's not supposed to look out the door to see this blistering rocket rising into the sky. And it's one heck of a ride for this rocket. We're not going in Earth orbit, okay? We're firing those solid propellants until they're out of juice and dropping them off. Kerosene keeps burning with that oxygen until it's done. Then they immediately light off the Centauri stage, and it's burning. And this rocket is going out around the Earth, making one swing out over the Atlantic Ocean, going around China, and then just blasting off into the space. And when that solid booster ignites as the last stage, it kicks the spacecraft at 15 Gs. And the whole spacecraft had to be designed to withstand that 15 G sledgehammer hit that accelerates the rocket. And when it leaves the Earth, it's going at 36,000 miles an hour, the fastest spacecraft ever to leave Earth. Just staggering, just amazing. And still going to take us 9.5 years to get there. Okay. So the spacecraft launches in January and it's on its way. Hubble gets an upgrade. And they point Hubble at Pluto and they find 2 more moons that they didn't know about. Hooray, they got more science to do. But again, these are the best images we can get of Pluto. This is the most finest detail we can get of Pluto and Charon, even with the Hubble upgrade. Still don't know a whole lot about it. And then in August, the IAU says, oh, Pluto's not a planet. And that was kind of a little deflating to the mission team that was going to send, it's working to send the spacecraft all the way out there. They're no longer going to a planet. Yes, we are, darn it. So the way we're going. So now the spacecraft gets to Jupiter in 13 months. It had taken Voyager 2 years to get there, and Galileo 6 years. But they need the gravity assist of Jupiter, and they're taking advantage of it. But it's also a great opportunity to test out all the instruments on the spacecraft. So they take all the instruments on the spacecraft, many of which are newer than what had flown on Galileo, that sort of thing, and certainly newer and better than what had flown on Voyager, to do science on Jupiter as they went by. And as they went by, they added 9,000 miles per hour to the speed of the spacecraft. So it left there going 47,000 miles an hour. And it's not there very long. It's only by the Jupiter system for a couple of days. If you look at the ticks there on the drawing, those are every 10 hours. So 10, 20, 30, 40 hours it's been in past Jupiter. But in that 40 hours or so, it's able to do quite a bit of science. There's a lot of it available on the web. I'm not going to go into it, but here's, for example, a photograph that New Horizon took of Io, showing a volcano erupting just over the horizon. So they did quite a bit of science as they went by Jupiter, and proved that all the instruments were working just fine. So now it's on its way. You think Jupiter's a long ways away, but we still got 7 years or longer to get out to where Pluto is. And Pluto at this point in time is just not that far past the orbit of Neptune. So it's still reasonably close to the Earth comparatively. So, but we're on our way to get to Pluto. One of the things that interests me, okay, so there is the speed difference. They're leaving Jupiter going 47,000 miles an hour, but the sun is still tugging at it. And by the time it gets to Jupiter, it's only been doing 39,000 miles an hour. The sun is still pulling at it, slowing it down for those 7 years. So the decision that was made was following this sort of logic. If you have a TV and you want to watch a program on TV 7 years from now, is it best to leave the TV on for the 7 years until you need it, or to turn it off and turn it back on again 7 years from now and watch your TV program? Well, electronics age slower if they're turned on. They age more rapidly and are likely to fail more if you continue to power them and run them. So the decision was to turn the spacecraft off, put it in a mode where it could sleep, and just cruise for 7 years to Pluto. Now, it saves money on staff. They furloughed most of the mission control people working on the program. But during this time, they wrote manuals so that, because the people who are going to come back at close encounter probably wouldn't be the people who designed the spacecraft and created it in the first place. Who knows where those people are going to be in 7 years. It saves money on staff. They don't have to pay everyone. So for 7 years, they also staff that remained, worked diligently on the course sequence, the maneuvers that they were going to use when they got to close encounter, and how they were going to manipulate the spacecraft to make all the measurements that were going to need to be made. So the spacecraft cruised for 7 years. They woke it up occasionally. It would call home and say, hey, I'm doing fine, and then go back to sleep. So then 10 days before encounter, I guess I'm going to back up on that. So let's see. They wake it up in December. So in December through July, the spacecraft is awake and they're working with it fairly closely. They're doing some long range imaging, they're doing some planning, and they're working with the spacecraft. But 10 days before the encounter, they lose contact with it. It goes dead. They call the Deep Space Network. Hey, is everything okay with you guys? They say, yeah, communication, everything's working. We don't have a signal from the spacecraft. Panic ensues. So the computer guys say, it's likely the computer crashed. And if it crashed, it should come back up on its standby system in about 90 minutes. So can you imagine sitting there waiting for an hour and a half to see if you're going to reestablish communication with the spacecraft 10 days before encounter? And 90 minutes later, they do. The spacecraft says, here I am, I'm up on the standby computer. Now they have two models in the Applied Physics Lab. There are two exact replicas of the New Horizons spacecraft. And they usually, anytime they're sending commands to the spacecraft, they test them out on the replicas before they send them up. And everything they do, they test on those replicas. And it's fortunate now that they have two of them because they're going to need them. So what they finally determined is the spacecraft was busy at the time compressing 63 images that had been taken. And at the same time, they had just finished the last tweak and design of the course sequence for the close encounter, and they were in the process of sending it up to the spacecraft. And it caused the computer, all that activity caused the computer to crash. So now they need to get it back up on the primary computer, but it's going to, it's going to take 9 hours to send the command, tell it to go back to primary, and to receive the reply that says, hey, I'm back and I'm on the primary. So they worked out the commands, sent them up to the spacecraft, and had to sit waiting for 9 hours to see if it came alive again on the standby, on the primary computer, and it did. So now what they had in memory was pretty well gone. So now they had to send up all the subroutines and code that ran each of the instruments, and they had to send up this new course sequence back up to the spacecraft. And they finally worked out that they could do it 3 batches and send them up in 3 batches, get a reply that everything was okay, and send up the next batch. So they sent 3 batches of commands up to the spacecraft, reconfigured all the programs, and they had it done on July 7th. So so they were fine now, and they had 7 more days before close encounter. So now what they had a sigh of relief, and they went on. So this was the original plan for the flyby. You know, starting in January when they woke it up, they did some long range observing of the Pluto system. And they were soon better than Hubble photographs. But they were concerned after they found those 2 new moons that there might be a thin ring system around the planet. And they were afraid that they may have to alter their plans if there was a lot of debris going around Pluto. Because if anything struck the spacecraft going at 39,000 miles an hour, it'd do a lot of damage. They also thought about orientating the spacecraft for it to go antenna first, plowing through any ring system that might be there. But their analysis of the images they received back said there's nothing there to worry about, and we don't have to change anything. We can fly through the Pluto system without worrying about getting hit by anything. So now the course sequence they had set up was for the center 30 hours going past the Pluto system. And during that time, that little dance they're going to do is make 236 different observations. Then as they leave the system, they're going to look back and make other measurements. But once they get all that data, it's going to take 16 months for them to send it all back to the Earth. It just amazes me that they can do this. The transmitter on the New Horizons spacecraft is only 12 watts, a 12-watt transmitter. And we can sit here on Earth billions of miles away, and we can hear a 12-watt transmitter. It's staggering in my mind, as well as the speeds and distances. The fact that we can communicate with it still, the fact that we can still communicate with Voyager is just sort of mind-boggling to my electrical engineering mind. Anyway, so this was the pass-through of the system. We can't slow the spacecraft down to spend any time there. It's going 39,000 miles an hour. So the spacecraft is going from the bottom right towards the upper left. And every one of those dots is 10 minutes as we're flying past it. And during this time, it's got to follow all its core sequences and make all the measurements as it's flying by autonomously with no control from Earth. So it flies by the system, taking photographs of all the moons. And it also amazes me the control they have over the trajectory. They designed the flight path so that it flies behind Pluto, so that Pluto occults the sun and the Earth. And the moon Charon is occulted by both the sun and the Earth. So they do this because one of the experiments is a radio receiver on the spacecraft, which looks at the signal being transmitted by the Deep Space Network to look how the radio waves go through the atmosphere of the moon and the planets, if any. And it gives you precise measurements of the sizes of the objects and such, and quite a bit of science in doing so. But the fact that they had that precision and control amazes me. And for this dance, for this core sequence to work right, they had to arrive there within 9 minutes of the estimated time, of the designed time. And I think they were within like 4 minutes. It's just phenomenal that they got there within the time constraint they had, going at 93,000 miles an hour. Those kinds of facts just amaze me. And voila, all of a sudden we knew a lot more about Pluto. This was taken the day before they started the core sequence. This was called the fail-safe image. They wanted to have one for sure image before they went through the system and did the core sequence. So just as a reminder, up until this point, the best image that we had of Pluto was the Hubble image in the bottom right corner of the slide. And then almost instantly, we had this image, which just mesmerized the world when it was released. And they took out some wonderful data. Now, I don't know the science of all this, but it's clear that the surfaces are very complicated. There's mountains and valleys, there's obviously impact craters, very complicated surface structure. They obviously see water ice on Pluto. And, there's churning nitrogen cells that are found on the planet, which is unique to this planet, not seen anyplace else. And just a lot of fascinating planetary geology going on Pluto. And even the moon Charon is found to be a really diverse object that's had a pretty rough history, obviously. And a lot of impact features and just signs of violent activity. And when you think about it, this is a comparison of Pluto and Charon to Earth. It just amazes me that with our telescope sitting here, we're able to see an object that small billions of miles away. And the size comparison sort of gives you an idea why it might be considered a dwarf planet. But that's not the end of the mission. After it left Pluto, well, they had got time on the Hubble telescope, and they asked Hubble to look out and see if there was any objects in the Kuiper Belt, which New Horizon might visit. So Hubble came up with these candidates. And then in 2019, it did fly by and take these images of Arakoth. And it's still continuing on through Kuiper Belt, looking for other things to take photographs and pictures of. But a hugely successful mission, and just mind-boggling to me in its scope and how it all came together. So I found it fascinating to learn about it, and I hope you thought this was interesting too. That's all I've got. Yeah.
Very good.
Back over to you, Charlie.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Don. Excellent.
Thank you.
Questions for Don?
Hey, Don, do you know if they found another Kuiper Belt object yet for New Horizons to investigate?
Not that I know of. They've taken pictures of some things with that long-range telescope, but when you look at the images, they're just dots. So, they haven't come close to anything else. They've taken some photographs with the long-range reconnaissance telescope, but they're just a few pixels big. But, it's got some fuel on it to change its trajectory, but they don't have much fuel or much control of changing it very much.
Did they have to use much fuel to get to that second object?
No, they
Change
didn't.
course?
No,
Pardon?
that one was fairly easy. They did do a course trajectory change to get there, but as far as I know, they still got some maneuverable fuel on board still.
So most of it was just luck, huh?
Yeah, that one was lined up. It was the
Yeah.
most fortuitous one.
How long can they communicate? How far out? Even New Horizons as well as the Voyager.
Could you repeat that, please?
What is the distance at which we lose contact with the spacecraft?
I don't know.
If I could jump in, right now, Voyager 1 is about 21 and a half light hours out from the sun, and we can still communicate with it. Not often, but it still has a few instruments on board, and that's the furthest man-made object out there.
Yeah, Voyager 1, as I recall, had a 90-watt transmitter. New Horizons has a 12-watt transmitter. So I don't know. That'll make a difference.
More questions?
That's good, because I don't have much more depth beyond what I presented. So.
Okay. Hey, we took it easy on you. Okay, once again, thank you, Don, very much
I hope you
for
enjoyed it.
excellent presentation.
Yeah.
Hey, Charlie,
Yes.
I still have the Pluto Safari on my devices, and New Horizons is now 1,348,000,000 kilometers out from the 2014 encounter. I don't know what the latest data sent back is, or whether they're able to process any more data. But and again, the timeline is out on the energy of the device. But I haven't looked at this in a long time, and now this inspires me to see whether they're still collecting any data. So that's my amateur 2 cents worth.
Thank you. So Don, could you use another lowbrow hat or a t-shirt, or can we get you a gift certificate?
I could use another t-shirt,
Cool. What size?
large.
All right.
I got
I
a
assume
question
Got
for
it.
Don, if I may.
Yep, I was going to say Doug heard that, so cool.
Got it.
All right. Be shipped all the way up from Florida. The box will be warm, right?
I have a question for Don, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Norm.
The Lowell Observatory, did you visit there, Don, and take those pictures while you were there?
Yes, I did.
Oh, very good.
It was fascinating.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place. I was there a couple summers ago, and the docent there at the tour let me touch the drive ring on the RA axis of that telescope. So I put my fingerprint on it, and I hope they didn't clean it off yet.
Well, I mean, they let the public look through the 24-inch. Have you done that?
Yeah, the 24-inch, but the Pluto Astrograph, I was referring to that
Oh, okay.
stuff too. The camera that Clyde used to take the images, and that one's a little cozier, obviously, in the dome, the little dome. So
Right.
it is for those lowbrows that haven't gone to Lowell. You really have to put it on your bucket list.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a mind-blowing, fascinating place.
What did you look at through the 24-inch?
Well, I didn't, a storm was coming through and there was tremendous torrential rains that night.
I got to look at Jupiter and Saturn both through the 24, and it's just magical. So, but they do have the Javali or whatever it's called, roll-off building now with an 8-inch refractor and a couple of plane wave scopes and a whole bunch of other stuff. So if you go to the webpage, you can see that there's
that
a
was
whole
under
living-
that was under construction when I was there.
Yeah, it was. I missed it by 2 months, but I was there in July, and it opened a couple months later. But it's like I say, if the lowbrows are out there, they definitely got to put it on their bucket list to visit there.
Yeah, I
And
think
when you're out there, go to Meteor Crater, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I did that too, and I overheard a gentleman walking out of the Meteor Crater visitor facility. Says, "Oh, what the big deal is? It's a hole in the ground."
Well,
Wanted to push him in it.
I mean, my two favorite observatories, I think, is number 1 Lowell, and close number 2 is Palomar.
Yep.
Though, if you're traveling on vacation, those are 2 places that are just wonderful to visit.
I did get to go to Palomar and walked in and saw the Hale telescope. So that was cool. And I did actually drive by pretty close to when I was driving through Flagstaff, but it was like 2 a.m. So I didn't think they were going to open the facility for me. But it was cool seeing that 200-inch though.
Yeah.
At Palomar, I got to ride around the ring as they rotated the dome on the 200-inch on the outside of the ring. And we spent the night looking through the 60-inch. The 60-inch scope nearby is the Meyer Telescope, named after Oscar Meyer, the hot dog guy, who donated the money for that scope in 1970. But the place I'm wondering about, if anybody's visited Mount Wilson.
I know Chuck Steele has, but I don't see him on here now.
Yeah.
That's open to the public, and it's pretty exclusive for observing outside Los Angeles. And I was also impressed with the Adele. Was it gosh darn, who's the singer? Adele did the James Bond theme, the outside of Griffith Park Observatory, overlooking Los Angeles.
Oh,
That's another one. If you ever get a chance to visit the Griffith Park Observatory, you get to see the Hollywood sign right over your shoulder and look over the LA Valley. That's a magical place too. So also another bucket list place to visit.
Yep, Kathy and I got up to Mount Wilson, but that was back in 1983 when I was spending a summer at JPL. So I don't know what it's like these days. It's been a little while since I last saw it.
Well, on Facebook, there's a gentleman that operates Mount Wilson as a docent or observer or whatever. He posts all kinds of stuff there, and you get to see all kinds of jealousy pictures because he's there every day. But it's open to the public for rental. If you go on the Mount Wilson site, you can sign up for time on the telescope and use the 60-inch and I guess even the 100-inch hooker scope.
If we could get 20 lowbrows out there at 250 a crack, we could rent it for the night.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that's something worth considering because it's, even though it's overlooking LA, it's the views through a 60-inch scope are indescribable.
Well, I've got the 100-inch running as well, I believe.
Yeah. So that's another, like I say, it's a checklist, a bucket list item that you might consider.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents worth. So there, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks.
Okay. So with that, we'll go on to officer reports. I just had a couple things. First, obviously, we're doing this meeting via Zoom only tonight. Reason that led up to this is we knew after the last meeting that Jeff was not going to be able to participate. And he's the only one really fully trained on the system in the U of M rooms. I know enough that I probably could get everything running, but that's probably not a certainty. And we did discover after that last meeting that what we tried to do there did not work very well. I could have set that up easily, but we were not happy with the results. We also noted that the first two in-person meetings, we only had 11 people in the room. Our thoughts were that being this close to Christmas, we might see not even 11 people show up. So we decided maybe best thing was just to return to the Zoom format. But now with Delta not going away and Omicron chasing us down, I really don't know what's going to happen in January. So I don't expect the situation to be better. I mean, we could get lucky, but my guess is it's probably going to be worse. And for all we know, we might not be able to get that room even if we want to. So we don't know yet. We may just go Zoom again next month. And I got a feel, in fact, that's probably the likelihood, but we'll see how it goes and of course let you know. So the other item is, I believe I did see Harry Anderson join us. And if I could turn it over to him for a minute, he is going to give us the results of the survey to rename ACNO. Think Harry's still there?
Yeah, I'm here. If you can hear me.
There you
okay.
go.
Yeah, I tallied up the votes. They all came within about the first 72 hours or 96 hours. The tally I sent you was a little incorrect, Charlie, but we had 29 votes for the current moniker ACNO, the Any Clear Night Observers. There was 4 votes for Any Causlin, the ACCNO moniker. There was 1 vote for John's Any Clear Night Observer Jackno and 1 for Causlin Night. So I think everyone overwhelmingly wanted to keep it as Any Clear Night Observer.
I think that was a strong message that way, huh? And so it will be. You know, I got a gut feeling that John would actually prefer it be that way. I just kind of got that feeling he wouldn't want to bring too much attention to him or, you know, get too cute that way. But I think it would be cool that in the future, you know, when we're doing ACNO events, especially when we see newer people join that maybe don't know how that came to be, that I would invite anybody in that case to explain to the new people, talk to them a little bit about John and Mark Deprest also. And, you know, how they started that and the purpose of it. And just to kind of keep the memories of John alive and also acknowledge that Mark was part of that great idea too. So, but so be it. It looks like it continues to be ACNO. And we appreciate you doing that survey, Harry. Thank you.
Certainly, my pleasure.
Okay, appreciate it. That's all I had, so I will move on. Joy is not with us tonight, but she did, 1 second here, send in a message, which really she didn't have anything to report, but she is not attending because she has an exam tomorrow. And she felt that if she wasn't studying for that and attended the Lowbrow meeting, she'd feel guilty. Personally, I don't see why, but I mean, doesn't this meeting take precedent over everything? But anyway, no, I totally understand. And let's all wish good luck to her on her exam tomorrow. So Adrian also is not going to be able to attend, and he sent in a report. Let me get to that one. And Adrian is saying it's been a long week, but he was hoping to get in on time for the meeting, but exhaustion was catching up with him due to some training and log4j stuff. I'm not sure if I understand that. Anyway, he's had a hectic week. So his report is that he is officially now an RASC Astro Imager, and his site is among many other good sites at Zanfolio, RASC Astro Imaging Wide Field. And I'm going to have him or somebody send out this email because he's got some links there so that the membership can check them out. There are also some other great galleries of other types of astro imaging on that page as well. He's been asked to be on the cover of the next Skies Up magazine, which can be found, and he has sent a link for that. And Kareem Jaffer and he continued to be mainstays at the Explore Scientific Global Star Party, which happens on Tuesday nights. And that link he also was sent, or he said you can follow Explore Scientific on YouTube and Facebook. And he has been known to wear a University Lowbrow astronomer's hoodie during my presentation. Well, we'd expect him to wear something University Lowbrow, right? Let's see. And also, he asked, is there a possibility of a lowbrow get together, safely, of course, among football fans and alumni in the club to cheer on our team in the playoff games? So I assume then he is talking about this little thing that we're quite so proud of. If I can get it stabilized there. Anyway, the championship shirt. So that's something we'll have to talk about. I think it's kind of a cool idea. I don't know if we could pull it off or what the venue would be, but I think I'll bring up amongst the officers and see if we can kick around some ideas that might fly. So that is Adrian's report. And Jeff, he sent something in. No, I guess what he sent actually was just the latest COVID-19 update from the U of M. So I guess, yeah, he didn't have any lowbrow business to report. If he did, that got by me, but I think that's the case. So with that, then I will call on Dave Jorgensen.
Okay, just not much here, just a status report on our speaker schedule. We're in pretty good shape for the next 6 months through June. And so the first open date is July of next year. So it's still, 7 months away. We've sent out several requests. A number of us have put out some requests to speakers, but we really haven't had much response. So I'm thinking we're going to have to look at perhaps some of our previous speakers and see if they'll come back for a return engagement. But if anybody has any suggestions, I know Doug Warshaw, he has been very helpful in giving us leads on speakers. It's always fun to have a new speaker rather than bring back an old speaker, though we've had some very good repeat speeches too. So anyway, just keep in mind that we're looking for speakers. July and the other 2 months next year are November and December, I believe. So that's it.
Dave, do me a favor. If I don't say anything in the next couple of weeks, tell me to remind me to contact our other guy in case that slips by me.
Yeah, okay.
Because there is a possibility he could line up with November. When he comes around this area, it's usually in the fall.
Yeah.
And I think November might be one of those times, like around October, November. So it's worth asking.
Okay.
So I'll check in with him.
Since I'm afraid I'm pessimistic about the pandemic, and people don't remember. None of us remember 1918 unless we've read about it. And what I've read about it is that that pandemic lasted 4 years when you go around the world. And seeing as how the variants and are becoming so contagious and they are transmitted across borders so quickly that that kind of timeline isn't out of it's depressing to think about, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. And, you know, we could have some of these speakers give us talks from anywhere they are in the world, because that part of the world of our lives is still working. So, you know, Brother Guy wouldn't have to be in Ann Arbor to give us a talk.
Right. And there's a distinct possibility that would be the case, that he might be able to do something on that date, but not actually be here physically. So doing Zoom might actually play into his hands if it's possible at all. So,
Yeah, in fact, it'd be an interesting thing to have him give us a talk from one of the facilities that he works at.
yeah.
Have
Actually,
we
when I
had,
think about it, I think the last time he spoke to us, he did it via Zoom. He wasn't at one of the facilities, but I remember he was down in Tucson at the time. He just wasn't at the observatory down there. But that's a cool idea, Jim. So yeah, I'll throw that at him, see what he says.
but are you saying that you think we have had him speak via Zoom? I don't recall.
Yeah, I believe the last time we had him, I'm pretty sure that ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me think. Yeah, I think that was a Zoom meeting. I remember having a Zoom session with him prior to that,
Yeah.
because I remember him walking around Tucson. I was envying the weather and all that, but I'm pretty sure that meeting was via Zoom. And that's why, because he was down there, you know, so the date worked, except for where he was located. I could recheck, but I think that was the case. Oh, and if I could back up a minute on Jeff's report, I thought he sent something in. He sent it via chat. That's why I forgot. And I had the chat window sitting right in my face here. Hardest place to find anything, you know. But then I think probably everybody saw it too anyway. But his report just says that he is going to hold a communications committee meeting in January when everyone is back from various activities and vacations. And Kathy has sent one in. Excellent idea, Kathy. How about the artsy, meaningless slideshow as a Zoom meeting, maybe next December? You know, I think about it. Yeah, the time is just about right for it. I think the last time we did it was in December, and that would work fine via Zoom.
Are you going to have Pete Alway do that?
No, the artsy, meaningless is Fred Sheever.
I know, but Pete Alway used to do that back in the 80s and 90s even. You recall?
No, so Pete actually started it?
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember Pete Alway doing it too with the Lowbrows.
Yep.
Charlie, who was it that sent you that email note?
That was Jeff.
Oh,
Jeff
Jeff sent
Carmanis.
that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yep. Okay, so December, artsy, meaningless possibility. Well, Dave, do you want to contact him or should I? Fred Sheever. I wrote myself a note. I'll go ahead and do it. Great idea.
Mute button's on right now.
Pardon?
Dave's muted right now, so I don't think. If you look at his screen, his mute button.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Now
now
he's
we're
Yeah.
on.
Okay. I'm back on. So, yes, he has done presentations in December for us in the past, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe even possibly even the last two artsy meaningless were in December.
Let me just check here. I'm just going to go to my,
That's true. You got the records.
I got the records here. Let's see.
And I'm
Let's
thinking
see.
the last one was what, 3 years ago, maybe?
Well, let's see. I've got, see, 2020, 2019. Oh, here it is. Yeah, 2018, Fred Sherber.
Yeah.
18,
Yeah,
19,
so it's
20, yeah.
been a while ago, 2018.
Yeah, so it'll be
December.
actually 4 years by the time we get to next December.
He's due, right?
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm starting to think more and more he doesn't even have a choice. So we could
That's
just
right.
write him in and I'll just let him know it.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'll contact him and see what he says. I got a feeling he'll do it, so.
Okay, Charlie's
And
gonna
again,
contact.
if we end up
Okay.
doing it via Zoom, that would work fine, actually. In
Yeah,
fact, some ways it
right.
might almost work better.
Okay,
And then again, I'll reach out to Brother Guy and see if maybe November works for him. Okay. Liz.
Hey there, good evening to everybody. Let me start out by saying that I agree with Jim. I'm pretty pessimistic given the COVID situation as it is currently developing. Of course, I see it from the law school where we're concluding our fall semester of classes and the buildings are locked down again. I'm thinking that campus may go back to a kind of lockdown regimen next semester. I think that's also, not that this is necessarily my bailiwick, but I think that's also going to have an effect, of course, on planning for open houses at Peach Mountain. Of course, we don't need to take that on tonight. However, I do want to say I still have the Peach Mountain keys.
Oh, you do.
If Jim would ever like to have them back, although DTE is going to start digging up, Sherwood Street. So I may have to throw them across the roofs to you or something.
Yeah, well, there's one of my trees went down and it's lying across power lines and a transformer. So they have to shut the power down at some point to clear that tree.
Right.
But every time the wind blows, I'm wondering whether it's going to take out the neighborhood.
Okay. Oh, yeah. We hear the noises. I didn't realize that was you, the hum, 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 and then everything flickers. So, anyway, so I do have the Peach Mountain keys whenever we get back there, and who knows when. So they're safe with me.
You've got the handbooks. The calendar showed up.
Okay. Let me defer that for just a minute. Let me.
Okay.
Trust me, I wish I had an answer to that, and I'm going to get back to it, okay? Item number 2, speaking of speakers, Dave and I sort of made a little side discussion about a month ago. I was going to approach Dan Crane, who is a professor at the law school. Space law is not specifically his specialty, but he was going to go hobnob with the space lawyers. Bottom line, here it is, finals at the law school, I just mentioned. Now is not the time to go following up with law professors on silly things like, hey, did you have lunch with space lawyers? So, but in the meantime, I pitched to David, we sort of got a side chat going about Space Force and this, that, and the other. I would like to approach our Senator Gary Peters about space economy in Michigan. This is something that he's sort of on. He's on some sort of defense appropriation committee. I would like to approach him and see if he would be a speaker for July. Okay, just because I want to hear his pitch. Okay, these are our tax dollars at work, for better or for worse, in space commerce directly involving our state. It's like, hey, why not? We the people, right? So I think Gary Peters owes us a presentation.
There you go.
Right. So I am going to follow that up. Let me see if I can get him for July, because it sounds like Brother Guy may be coming in virtually for November, and then
Lots of shot. I don't know for sure, but maybe.
That would be wonderful. And the artsy meaningless, I think you hassle Fred Shabor and tell him he's overdue, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be very wonderful. So
Charlie?
Yes.
I have a kind of a connection there that may be helpful there. I'm very active with the Livingston County Democratic Committee, and we've had a lot of communications with Peters. We're on a pretty solid footing there. So I would like to participate in inviting Peters to speak with us.
Oh, that's fabulous. Oh, if somebody
Cool.
has a prior connection, you
Yes.
go.
Yeah.
Whoever gets to him, that's great. Let's go ahead and leverage that connection then. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I will put you down as trying to make contact then, John. Is that right?
That's correct. I'll do that.
Yep.
Very good.
Cool.
Very good.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be great if after he gives a speech to us, then next time he's on the air, he's wearing a Lowbrow t-shirt or hat?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, he would do that.
You think he would really?
Oh, yes. I think
Oh,
he
that would be
do that
cool.
for us.
This is terrific. Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Anything promoting, you know, Michigan and especially U of M is big with the political people.
Let's do
So,
it.
We'll work on that.
Cool.
Okay, now, Jim asked about the calendars. This is bringing us to Rask materials. So somewhere out there, I'm going to reach out and see if I can find Doug. Doug, I'm coming for you, Doug Scoble, wherever you are. So yes, I have the handbags.
I don't remember ordering those.
Yeah, no, that's a different order. The handbooks. Except for Brian Close, whose handbook I sent off to him. Just for everybody, it's about $3 media mail to send you a handbook. I don't know what it would be to send you a handbag, not my department. So just bear that in mind. I have not seen anything with the calendars. They haven't arrived, and I haven't had a chance this week to get with Doug and ask if he's got an update from his standpoint, but I am very aware that I have people's handbooks and they're sort of being held up. So Doug, are you out there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Oh, good. Okay.
Right here. Don't you see me above you? Look up.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this is concluding my part of the report, and now I'm going to segue over to Doug. Doug, take it away.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I wasn't going to lead with that, but I think I will now. So maybe 2 weeks ago, got another email from our contact at Rask, and she said, I apologize for the late response. Things are slow. We'll get an invoice to you. Bottom line is nothing's changed. So I still don't have an invoice for the handbooks, but we have the handbooks. We don't have the calendars, but we've paid for the calendars, and that's still where it stands. And there's still no news as far as when they may arrive or may not arrive or whatever. I was hoping they would be here by now, and you know as much as I do now. So it's not a good look for them, but you know, I don't know if they're having problems with shipping and drivers, who knows what, but regardless, that's where that is. So I can try to poke at her again and see if there's any more info, but it might be another week or two before I get a response. I found out that if I call her, I get a roaming charge on my phone, which I can charge the club. It's not much, but it's, you know, I should probably just give her a call. I'll give her another call sometime next week and see if there's any more info.
Well, just tell her if we don't get those pretty soon, the world's not going to be able to enter into 22. You know, it's going to hold up everything.
Well, the thing is, you know, you get a calendar and information for January and you don't have it yet. You know, that's not a good look.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time in 2021. So back to more mundane business. We have 173 memberships, and 13 of those are folks that we're extending their membership because of COVID considerations, and there doesn't seem any reason to reevaluate that policy. So if they expire, they expire, but I don't expire. I don't remove them. So they're still there as members. The only expense that we've paid since the last meeting was I gave Dave Jorgensen $80 because we haven't reimbursed him for heating in his workshop for keeping the 17.5-inch telescope warm through the winter months. So we last paid him $35 2 years ago. We didn't pay him for last year. So I just went ahead and paid him $40 for last year and this year. So he'll be caught up through this coming winter. Technically, it's not winter yet. And then, yeah, RASC, that change. And then, as you may surmise from some of the conversation earlier, I'm not in Michigan right now. I'm snowbirding in Florida. We're close to Deb's folks who live in Lakeland here, and we're in Lakeland, and they're 92 years old and they're living at home. They need a little looking after, and Deb's been wanting to escape winter as long as I've known her. So here we are. And I brought my computer, I brought a few shirts, I brought shipping boxes. And on that note, any of you that are online right now and listening to me, if you have tried to renew your membership by mailing me a check, I still don't have the mail situation figured out. I submitted long before we left, before the start of December, change of address, temporary change of address, and all that kind of thing. And it hasn't apparently taken root because people that check our house periodically, we had mail in our mailbox yesterday, and 2 of them were lowbrow checks. One of them was an existing member whom I've contacted, and the other one is a new member that I have no idea other than a return address. So when I get that straightened out, I'll let you know. But just be aware that if you send me a check in the mail, let me know that you've done so, and I will go ahead and mark you down as being renewed, but I just won't be able to cash your check till I actually get it. So I'm working on that. And one more thing, now that I've moved to Traverse City, at least this year, not even in Michigan, I think it'd be better if I let the treasurer job go to someone else, if anyone else wants it come April. So April elections, I will allow other people to run for the office. Otherwise, I would keep it. But I think it's better if someone's there now. If the pandemic does keep going the way it is, there may not be a reason to change. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I'm just making it available now for anyone that maybe really wants to handle other people's money. And requirements aren't great. You have to be able to, balance a checkbook, write checks, receive checks, cash checks. And if you have a good working knowledge of Excel, spreadsheet program, Microsoft Excel, that's a big help. I put a lot of stuff into Excel. Not macros and crazy programs that run off it, but it's a fairly experience. It's good to have good working knowledge of Excel and some of its capabilities. And it makes your life a lot easier. Some things I'd still like to change for the better, but anyway, anyone that might want it, you can have it.
Doug,
And
how
if
much
not,
of other people's money do we have?
we have, I didn't read that. $11,642, $11,642.37.
Thank you.
You
Yeah,
gotta
so
figure out something to buy.
yeah. Well, we haven't done much on the observatory lately. We haven't recoated the mirror. We haven't made a new telescope or anything like that. So yeah, we have money. We have money.
Well, we do have problems with the 17.5 we have to iron out, so there might be some money going into that.
Okay. But I think that's my report. Any questions or?
Yeah, I think Liz has one.
Yep. So about distributing the handbooks.
Yes.
This is what I'm concerned about. Okay. I'm concerned, number one, New Year is coming up, right?
Yep.
Number two, that COVID wave. What I would like to do is get the handbooks that I've got to the people who've ordered them. There's no reason.
agree.
Okay, so let me work it out with you through email, and then go to the officers with a strategy, and then promulgate it to the whole membership. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, and I don't know if there's much really to plan out there. I think it's
Okay.
kind of, everyone should know, and if they don't already, we can send out maybe a joint statement saying, you've got the handbooks.
Yep.
And it's up to you, Liz. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
How to get them to folks.
Yeah, because running out of time of the year, running out of time
Yeah.
of the virus, and sooner or later, Snowbird, running out of time with the weather. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
sooner rather than later, if I could get them out within the next week, that would make me very happy. So let me think about
Yeah.
it, come up with a plan, okay?
And I'll hit up the RASC again. Like I said, early next week, I'm gonna call, try to find out, because we paid for those calendars and we don't have them. And I'd like to pay for the handbooks, which we do have. So that needs to be straightened out, and people need their stuff before the first of the year. So
Yep,
I'll find out where that is.
Okay, I'll work on it from my end. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
and Don, I'll send you a size large t-shirt. I did bring a couple t-shirts with me, so you should get it in the mail within less than a week.
Very good. Thank you. There's no hurry, of course.
Okay.
Alrighty. Amy,
Yeah, hi, hey Charlie. Nothing for me again. No
that was
report.
quick. Thank you. Great newsletter once again, Amy.
Thank you.
So Amy, that picture you put on Facebook of that tree, was that in your yard?
I'm sorry to say it was. It was a 70-foot fir tree that blew over last Saturday.
Well, you're lucky it didn't blow over on anything.
I know it hit it came right toward the house, and the last 2 feet hit the house and didn't do any damage. We got very
Whoa.
lucky.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Last but not least, Jack.
Well, let me go to share screen. I'll get this set up. Should open up. All right. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, you should see a picture of the observatory. And
Jack,
got a TV on?
I'm only seeing half your screen. Is everyone else
Yeah.
seeing the same thing?
Yeah.
Just half.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, we're just seeing the right side of it.
Oh, really? Ooh,
It's actually quite odd.
yeah.
Must be the vandal striking again.
Let me see. Oh, your screen share is paused. Why is that?
Hmm.
So do you see the inside of the observatory on this picture?
No.
No, the outside.
Oh, okay, wait a minute. So, oh, this is getting goofy now.
Yeah, we're just seeing the south side of the building and part of the west.
Yeah,
Huh.
Jack, maybe unshare it and then reshare it.
That's what I'm thinking. Stop share.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back to Charlie. Say, okay, let me go back to this again and see what happened here. Okay. Now we hit share. Okay. Now, do you see the observatory picture there?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, that's a slideshow. Now you should see the full.
See the whole building, yes.
That ain't right. Okay, we're gonna have to do it. I'm having a problem here and I don't know why. Never had this problem before. Let's go back here. Share. Okay, see the observatory?
There you go.
Okay. All right, we'll have to do it this way then. Don't know what happened here, but anyway, this was taken December 14th. We rolled off the roof. I moved up the telescope and that just to make sure everything works. Checks out some sort of like a maintenance. Hopefully we get lucky. March 2022, we may have an open house, depending on what happens. Our next photograph here is the inside of the building. Are you guys seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, maybe this is going to work by this way then. This is just the inside and everything, locked down, everything's ready for next year. Now, some of you may have heard the unusual rumor of moving the observatory onto the surface of the planet Mars. And as you can see here, we did some preliminary investigation. I didn't care for this location that NASA selected. So we went for a new location. And if I could have gotten this to show properly, it probably would have looked a lot better.
Much better horizon.
Oh yeah, real good horizon. Yeah, now you can see the whole picture and everything. But yeah, real good spot. We just got to get a financial donor to do that so we can make this a remote control observatory we can control on Mars. But that's what happens. You got all this time to think all day long. Other than that, the only issue out there was last week when we had the power outage out in Dexter Township. There was a power outage out at the observatory for a few hours or half the day until they brought the power back online. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report. Just getting ready for 2022. And I realize the way everything's gone in the last couple of weeks, you may or I'm looking at having it open, but you know, the system is such that things could change. We may not, but I'm planning on that March 2022. So we'll take it from there. Any questions on the observatory?
Jack, did the graffiti issue get covered up? I take it those are recent images. I've been out of
Yes,
touch.
it did. Yes. With the graffiti images, I went out, I think it was in it was around November. And I had the same paint that we used before. And I covered this wall and this other wall here and painted over them. And that type of paint, that elastomeric paint, which can seal and prevent water from getting into the cement and everything, it's worked out pretty nice. That observatory is a little less moist, not as damp, and it's kept a lot of the water out. So that's working out pretty good. But we have to go through a few more winters to make sure it's going to last. So we've only went through one winter. Let's wait a few more. But yeah, it's worth using.
So no evidence of it being masked by the paint or anything?
No, I covered over. I covered over with the original elastomeric paint again.
Okay.
It looks pretty good. Yeah. You just got to use it slow and put it on thick.
Okay.
Yeah, but it worked out pretty good. Yeah. So far we're lucky. Nobody else has come out there and started any more graffiti. So
yeah, you know, and if we really move it to Mars, it's unlikely they will in the future.
Yeah, that's true. I was looking at that idea. Of course, it would be remote controlled, but then again, you know, there is enough room in this one area where somebody, I guess, could sleep there and maintenance it, but you'd have to deal with certain issues about oxygen and other things. But
there are some inconveniences.
Yeah, there would be some inconveniences, but this particular area, this other area, it's kind of nice. I don't see anything out there other than atmospheric problems with turbulence that would be an issue.
Yeah, no trees to trim.
That's true. You know, well, we won't get into it. That's a good point.
Problem you'd have on Mars, you see, is the odd rover coming by and drilling holes in the building.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah.
Well-
They just want to get a sample.
Sandstorms.
Yes,
Well-
dust to be a real problem.
yeah, when you roll that
Yeah.
roof back, if there's a dust storm, yeah, you get a lot of dust in there. But then again, maybe that would be a reason for them to let me take a trip there and check everything out. That'd be interesting. Of course, that would be under the expense of a NASA expense, not a lowbrow expense.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, we have to understand.
Yeah, our $11,000 might come a little short.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, that's all the questions I have. Anything else anybody would like to know? Well, if there's nothing else.
Jack,
I think John.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
John.
Jack, you want to take any credit for grounds improvements out there?
Well, we have made some ground improvements. We haven't talked a lot about it, but there are a selective group of trees that are right next to the observatory. And we have removed those trees. And we are in the process of cleaning up the area. But that is a selective group. So I don't want anybody to run around thinking we're cutting down Stinchfield Woods, because we're not doing that. I'm not buying a new chainsaw to do that. But yeah, so
No,
there's a lot, it's going to look a lot different in 2022 on the east side. The horizon should be more open. And some issues we had with planets and that rising in the southeast and all that, we should see those better from the 24-inch.
Jack,
As you can see out here, go ahead, John.
Well, you've done a great deal of work out there, really.
Yeah.
Your dedication to that project is admirable.
Thank you. It's
Yes.
well, if we're going that far, then people probably don't know, but there is a tree maintenance group of 4 or 5 people. And that's been myself, John Wallbank, Chris Adams, Mike Hagan, and Kurt Hillig has loaned us his chainsaw there a couple times, or a timer. So yeah, I thank those people too for their help coming out and doing that. Some of those trees, they take a couple people, and it has to be a controlled fall. You just can't cut them down. It doesn't work that way. So other than that, though, it's been an experience out there, but you'll notice a change in when you're out there in 2022, especially observing wise and everything. So any other questions? Well,
I don't
with
see
that,
any.
no, I'm going to let it go then and go back to the screen and turn it back over to Charlie. Let me hit the shots.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
Okay, there we go.
So does anybody have anything else they would like to bring up? Norbert?
I just want to mention that in November, I picked up a Celestron 8-inch RASA Roe Ackerman Astrograph. And with my ZWO camera at Fish Lake, even with the hazy sucker hole clouds, took 10 30-second exposures of M31. It was the best Andromeda picture I ever got. So it's an f2 scope. I've got it on a Skywatcher mount, the Q5 Pro, and it's so far so good. But once I get things sorted out with the USB connectivity and everything else, I'm looking forward to some really good shots with that. Jeff Thrush has an 11-inch version of it, but the 8-inch, I was impressed with how easy it is to use, and it'll probably be a good EAA, electronically assisted astronomy instrument. So hope to use it up at Scherzer in the months ahead. So if we do have to go back to, COVID protocols and confine ourselves, at least we can do some remote astronomy, much like Brian Autumn was doing, but locally. So it's a nice instrument. I'm pleased I got it. I also took delivery on an Orion 6-inch telescope, just one of those tabletop jobs. Just never have enough scopes, you know.
You're just so spoiled, Norb. Too many toys, just too many.
Are
I
you
mean,
gonna,
tools, yeah, tools.
are you gonna have that Orion intelligence scope up at Lowell Observatory?
I might. I'm looking to see what to do with it right at the moment. I just couldn't resist because it was on sale, and frankly, they had one in stock more than anything else. That was a shock. So everything's out of stock these days. But anyways, I do plan it. We have a 10-inch telescope up at Scherzer, and it's one of the more popular scopes with our students. They really enjoy using it. You know, easy use and the little handheld computer, push to. It's for the money on a 10-inch scope. It's a great little instrument. It's gotten really good reviews from the students. So if anybody's interested in a good scope, little telescopes are pretty cool. There you
Okay.
go.
Thanks, Norb. Anything else? Doug?
I'm going to be out of town between the 22nd and January 3rd. Should I leave the mailbox key with someone during that time, or is that not really necessary?
I would say it's not necessary. I mean, it's only a week or two, whatever, and you know, it's like we don't get that much mail. I mean, you haven't sent me any notices over a month or so, right?
I just checked again about 4 days ago.
No. I mean, even when I was there, I was only checking it once every 2 weeks or so, and once a month is plenty, really. There's not that much important stuff that comes through there.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
yeah.
Anything else?
I have a really stupid question to ask everybody. So I'm looking at myself in the in my camera, and my my image that I see of myself is mirror reversed. Does everyone see me mirror reversed? Can you read that at the top of my t-shirt?
Yeah, key went off.
Yeah,
You look
And it's
correct.
right.
it's right reading.
Okay.
There's a control under video where you can determine and whether you want it mirror reversed or not.
Okay, but you're seeing it. You're all seeing it correct.
Yeah, your head's off.
No,
You're doing good.
No, wait a minute. Let's take a closer look at that. I think it's reversed.
Well, it's either the
Oh, no,
camera
okay. All right.
or
No, it's not. Yeah, I just didn't see it well.
1 week at. That's what I see.
It's okay on mine.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't
good.
know what to
Yeah,
tell you.
great.
So it's just my image being reflected back, and okay. That way, when I raise this hand, it looks right to me, but okay. All right.
That was your
The
right
thing's
hand.
turned. The thing, what's that?
No, don't tell them that. It'll screw
Yeah,
them
don't.
up.
Same thing with these.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? So see
Astronomy
none.
meeting.
Oh, John?
Astronomy meeting.
Oh, I guess okay. So I guess with that, I hope everybody had a really great Thanksgiving. I hope everybody that celebrates Hanukkah had a great 8 days of Hanukkah, and looking toward the future, that we all have a great Christmas and New Year. And how about reconvening in January, and let's do this again.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Go Blue.
Charlie.
Right.
Yeah,
Charlie,
take
I
care.
have one
Great.
quick little input, if I may. Charlie.
Sure. What was that?
Watch for Venus to disappear here in just a week or two. It's going to zip on out of there, and Comet Leonard has made its way into the evening sky just underneath Saturn here. The next few nights, if it clears off in a few days, it should be a binocular object just underneath Saturn.
Okay.
Cool. I don't know. It's been clear here.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
And kind
Yeah.
of.
Sorry.
Just
Had to
pointing out
rub it
a few-
in, didn't you?
few little
No.
observational notes.
Okay.
Okay. Again, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.